At the age of 147, Israel lies upon his bed. Joseph sits quietly watching his father. Closely knit to his father's heart, he does not leave his side, knowing he will soon go the way of all mankind. Behold, I am dying, but God will be with you and bring you back to the land of your fathers. Gather together and hear, you sons of Jacob. Listen to Israel, your father. Starting with Reuben, his firstborn, Israel prophesies concerning his sons and blesses them. Being the 12th son, Benjamin waits to hear his father's word concerning him. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. In the morning he shall devour the prey, and at night he shall divide the spoil.
I wasn't, this is going back probably 25 to 28 years ago, and I was a nominal Christian. I was going to church. I was one of those white sepulchres that looked good on the outside, and we read in the Bible that God can give visions and dreams, and I'm not saying I had a vision, but I definitely had a dream.
For many people, the father figure in their home is often a source of strength, comfort, and wisdom. And who else is better to sit down and talk about the purpose of life than one's very own dad? My name is Tristan, and this is the life of King Saul.
Okay, so for me, it's always important to give your family history. And so right from the very beginning of chapter 9, verse 1, we're given a history of Saul's lineage. And especially important to me is the fact that it mentions right from the word go, a man of Benjamin.
There was a man of Benjamin, whose name was Kish, the son of Abiel, the son of Zeror, the son of Becheroth, the son of Aphiah, a Benjamite, a mighty man of power. And he had a choice and handsome son whose name was Saul. There was not a more handsome person than he among the children of Israel. From his shoulders upward he was taller than any of the people.
One thing that comes to mind in verse 2 for me is it doesn't mention God in any of this. It just mentions who Saul is, gives a description of who Saul is. He was very handsome. In fact, my Amplified Bible says, among all the Israelites there was not a man more handsome than he. And also he was tall, head and shoulders above everybody else. So he is a very tall and handsome person. And I'm sure he would have had some young ladies' heads turn and look his way.
But not only that, not only his good looks, he's got the, as you said, the warrior-like heritage to go with it.
Exactly.
If you go to Judges, I'll quickly skim to Judges 20, 15 to 16. And from their cities at that time, the children of Benjamin numbered 26,000 men who drew the sword, besides the inhabitants of Gibeah, who numbered 700 select men. Among all these people were 700 select men who were left-handed. Everyone could sling a stone at a hair's breadth and not miss.
Yeah, and I also read that they were good in archery. They were warriors. There was no doubt about it.
Now the donkeys of Kish, Saul's father, were lost. And Kish said to his son Saul, "Please take one of the servants with you, and arise, go and look for the donkeys." I don't know about you, but every time I read that, I guess from where we are in history, if we kept donkeys as a family, you could be a rich farmer, but it's not royal. It's not royal. Today's day and age, but back then, you brought up wealth.
Yeah.
Kish could have very well been wealthy, and so Saul could have been I guess in today's language, a rich family kid.
Well, he was. If you go back to verse 1, it says Saul's dad was a man of wealth, and he was a rich man's son. Possibly maybe spoiled, I don't know. We could read into that, but yeah, that's the history of Saul's family.
And it's interesting though, because with a young man with all this promise, all these attributes, these good looks, this character, this warrior-like tribe, and here he is looking after donkeys. So he passed through the mountains of Ephraim and through the land of Shalisha, but they did not find them. Then they passed through the land of Shalem, and they were not there. Then he passed through the land of the Benjamites, but they did not find them. If we develop and integrate only 30% of our aptitudes, interests, and capacities into our basic life purpose, we will then experience a 70% boredom factor. Therefore, God designs opportunities, irritations, problems, and circumstances to motivate us to develop aptitudes, interests, and capacities which would otherwise remain dormant. And it's
interesting.
It's almost as if, and I think you probably picked up on this, this situation with the donkeys seems to be brought about by God to introduce a challenge or introduce God's leading for a makeup of the 70% boredom factor that potentially could exist for Saul.
Yeah, well, he could have had everything he wanted, couldn't he? But you don't hear any answering back by Saul to his father when he's asked to go. So there is an element of respect to his dad Kish. And yeah, so there's no conversation from Saul. He goes. And I did look up before we started reading what sort of distance this was, and roughly 13 miles was the first area that Saul went looking for his donkeys. Fair walk to Ephraim, through the land of Ephraim, the hill country, and then the following area. I didn't find the distance, but it was a fair hike looking for donkeys. So there would have had to have been a determination by both the servant and Saul. But it says here they did not find them.
Well, it doesn't give us how many donkeys went missing.
It must have been enough.
It was enough value for Kish to be concerned.
Exactly. You wouldn't have one donkey, it says donkeys, but I would imagine there'd be possibly, would you call a donkeys a herd?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either, but yeah, all we know is it concerned his dad enough to go spend time looking.
Well, you wouldn't think that if it was a herd, I don't know what the correct term for it is, but a large group of donkeys, surely that would be an easy task to find. It's not like you're going and searching for a single person in the middle of the ocean. And yet, if this is God's purpose to get Saul out of the house, so to speak, and to bring him to where he wants him, he certainly has done a good job of hiding these donkeys.
Correct. Yeah.
When they had come to the land of Zuph, Saul said to his servant who was with him, "Come, let us return, lest my father cease caring about the donkeys and become worried about us." And he said to him, "Look now, there is in this city a man of God, and he is an honorable man. All that he says surely comes to pass. So let us go there. Perhaps he can show us the way we should go." Then Saul said to his servant, "But look, if we go, what shall we bring the man? For the bread in our vessels is all gone, and there is no present to bring the man of God. What do we have?" And the servant answered Saul again and said, "Look, I have here at hand 1/4 of a shekel of silver. I will give that to the man of God, and he will tell us on our way."
So it was recognized that they did bring a gift. Saul said to his servant, verse 10, "Well said, come, let us go." So they went to the city where the man of God was.
But it's interesting that even though that was a tradition, I think of Naaman, and Naaman is another story.
Yeah.
And Naaman comes to Elisha and he asks for healing from leprosy. And he has goods upon goods upon goods in abundance as a gift.
Yeah.
And Elisha says, "No, I don't need it." And whether or not there were, because there's always false prophets, and there's also seers that were not of God. And so whether or not the tradition came about through false prophets, I'm not sure, because the Bible also says that a worker is worth his wages. In Acts chapter 8, we have an interesting account of a man named Simon. Now, not Simon the disciple, but a different one. "And when Simon saw that through the laying on of the apostles' hands the Holy Spirit was given, he offered them money, saying, 'Give me this power also, that anyone on whom I lay hands may receive the Holy Spirit.' But Peter said to him, 'Your money perished with you, because you thought that the gift of God could be purchased with money. You have neither part nor portion in this matter, for your heart is not right in the sight of God. Repent therefore of this your wickedness, and pray God if perhaps the thought of your heart may be forgiven you. For I see that you are poisoned by bitterness and bound by iniquity.'" Now, I guess it would be a far stretch to say that Saul had the exact same heart. But every time we come to God and we have money that we wish to use to get a blessing or get an answer or to try and buy God's favor, it shows an inner bitterness or inner turmoil or inner distrust of God, that we must earn him or earn his blessings.
More for me would be the fact that we rely on our money more than we rely on God. And that's my security, is my money. It's a very dangerous area to fall into. I think, and I thought about this the other day actually, about the rich young ruler, where Jesus had that encounter. And one of the very few times where Jesus actually said to this young man, "Come and follow me." He already had his 12 disciples, yet this man had an open invitation, "Come and follow me." But the requirement was he relied on his wealth and his, I guess from the wealth side of things, it may have been the prestige, it may have been a standing in society as well, and he was to give it all away. What a dilemma.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because the fact that he had an open invitation from Jesus to come follow him, and yet there were so many who longed to follow Jesus, like the demoniac, who had demons, the legion of demons cast out of him. And he begged Jesus, let me go with you. And he said no.
Yeah.
Because he had a different purpose for him. And yet this rich young ruler receives an open invitation from Jesus Christ, the Son of God himself, to follow him. And he stumbles at money.
The biggest mistake in his life. You know, what would we do in today's world if we are asked to give away everything that we possess, or the direction in our lives that we intend to go?
Is there a greater desire from God for Saul apart from just being king? As in, the position of being king is almost as if you've been promoted in a worldly sense in business. You've been promoted all the way to the top, just below the CEO. So God is promoting Saul all the way up to the top to an intimate relationship position where he can truly connect with Saul, and Saul can be really the representation, dare I say it, at least I sound like he's God on earth, which he's not, but he's just below God and leading the Israelites, and he's meant to have this real intimate connection with God. God clearly has a plan for King Saul. And there's another verse in 2 Samuel 14:14. For we will surely die and become like water spilled on the ground, which cannot be gathered up again. Yet God does not take away life, but he devises means so that his banished ones are not expelled from him. God is letting Saul have this opportunity to become king for more than one reason, I can imagine.
Yeah, I agree.
While I was reading at work today, I'm reading a book on low vision, and it's discussing different aspects on ways that people learn, especially with people with disabilities, how they learn. And the chapter that I was reading was based on older people, and it's very specific that it says adult learners are ready to learn when they have a need to know or to do something, to perform more effectively in some aspect of their lives, or so on. Adults do not learn primarily for the sake of learning, but to perform a task, solve a problem, or live in a more satisfying way. The motivation to learn must come from them, but the instructor can increase or awaken this motivation by exposing adult learners to more effective role models and provide diagnostic experiences in which they can assess the gaps between their present and desired functioning. And I feel like this is what God is essentially doing with Saul. He is the motivator. He is the assessor. He's trying to motivate Saul to a better place from where he's currently at. But it sort of highlights a big issue that is very prevalent in our world today, and that's purposelessness. Big joint words there. People with no purpose.
Yeah.
Young people going around with no purpose.
Well, I guess even just hearing that word purpose, it seems to be on two different spectrums. Like, you talk about the young, but as people, I'm talking men and women, get older, and I'm talking about the latter years of their life, they ask themselves, what is my purpose in life now? My family has grown up. I'm ending my career in whatever job I've been doing for whatever number of years. So they also ask the question, what is my purpose? Where do I fit in now? You know, and sometimes that can be a massive void that for some is never answered.
When God looked on eternity, He saw you and He saw me, and He said, it's worth the risk to have you in my life. What I want to obtain is worth my sacrifice. So let there be light. He desires all to be saved, all to know the truth, and He gave Himself a ransom for all. You are worth everything to the King of Kings, and so He said, let there be you. As God looked from His throne above, He saw sin and what it does, and He said, it's worth the risk to give my only Son. What I want to obtain is worth my sacrifice. So let there be light. He desires all to be saved, all to know the truth, and He gave Himself a ransom for all. You are worth everything to the King of Kings, and so He said, let there be you. As God looks on with loving eyes, He sees just who you are inside, and He says, you're worth it all to me. What I wanted to obtain was worth my sacrifice. So won't you let me be yours. He desires all to be saved, all to know the truth, and He gave Himself a ransom for all. You are worth everything to the King of Kings, and so He said, let there be you. That's why He said, it was worth it all for you.
You can find the song featured in this episode by searching Let There Be You by Carly Fletcher.
So when we experience bad situations or events that take place in our lives, how do we negotiate or navigate those things? Do we complain to God about, oh, this has happened, my vehicle's broken down, life is hard and not going the way I expect, I have no future in my job, I'm bored. Where do we go with this? Saul could have said, hey, it's your donkeys, Dad.
So they went to the city where the man of God was. As they went up the hill to the city, they met some young woman going out to draw water, and said to them, Is the seer here? And they answered them and said, Yes, there he is, just ahead of you. Hurry now, for today he came to this city because there is a sacrifice of the people today on the high place. As soon as you come into the city, you will surely find him before he goes up on the high place to eat. For the people will not eat until he comes, because he must bless the sacrifice. Afterward, those who are invited will eat. Now therefore, go up, for about this time you will find him." As they were coming into the city, there was Samuel coming out toward them on his way up to the high place. Now the Lord had told Samuel in his ear the day before Saul came, saying, "Tomorrow about this time I will send you a man from the land of Benjamin, and you shall anoint him commander over my people Israel, that he may save my people from the hand of the Philistines, for I have looked upon my people, because their cry has come to me." I've underlined that line there, that he may save my people from the hand of the Philistines, because I believe this is the fulfillment of Jacob's prophecy to his son Benjamin, his tender, precious, beloved youngest son, that he would be a ravenous wolf through Saul, and no doubt others in his heritage.
Well, we know that for a fact that Saul was no wimp, because when the young woman sang the song about Saul and David and comparing the numbers that Saul has killed against the numbers that David has killed, further down in the latter chapters, we know that Saul was a mighty warrior. You know, he didn't back up when it came to the hard decisions. So there's a bigger picture going on here, isn't there? Right from the word go in chapter 9, beginning of chapter 9, and as we're reading on, there's a bigger picture. And that's no different to us. You know, where we think we're stuck, where we struggle in life, I pray that God will put people in your life that will be a blessing and encourage and uphold you and be an ear and a mouthpiece and a hand and a foot.
So when Samuel saw Saul, the Lord said to him, "There he is, the man of whom I spoke to you. This one shall reign over my people." And Saul drew near to Samuel in the gate and said, "Please, tell me, where is the seer's house?" So he didn't know him. He had never met Samuel.
Saul didn't know Samuel.
This is their first introduction.
Exactly. He could have walked right by him and never known.
So how much more are we at risk of not knowing of A, we're in error, or we walk past God, or walk past, like the rich young ruler, passing by an opportunity to be called by God.
Yeah, again, I keep going back to this. I just, Samuel was known in the provinces, but Saul didn't know him. I just wonder what was going on in Saul's life.
Being wealthy would have probably been a big contributing factor, because I know when I've been door knocking and with other youth, the rich neighborhoods are the hardest ones to witness to because they have everything.
And so, what's the word that they have no need? And this is the thing: is when you have no need of Jesus Christ or of anything else, everything is at your fingertips. You can have one of those seared hearts, a heart like rock, which can be very hard for the Holy Spirit to crack. I'm not saying he can't.
I think the question you asked there is really crucial, and I believe I've heard you ask this of someone else who you're encouraging to walk with God. You can only really walk with God if you understand your need of God. And I've actually written that down. Do we feel our need of God?
That is a very important question.
And that's helpful once you address that. It's helpful to recognize your true condition. And it's okay to admit, no, I don't feel my need of God, but I would like to know. It's scary, though, because I've prayed the prayer, break me for my sins. And you enter into a real emotional roller coaster, because God does break your heart. He breaks you, and he shows you the full extent of your sinfulness. Sometimes we might need that a few more times.
Too often we can do church as Christians and go through the rituals and the way the programs are week after week after week, and we miss, what is my need? We just follow without even thinking. And God wants us to think.
Isaiah 64, 4 and 5. For since the beginning of the world, men have not heard nor perceived by the ear, nor has the eye seen any God besides you, who acts for the one who waits for him. You meet him who rejoices and does righteousness, who remembers you in your ways. You are indeed angry because we have sinned. In these ways we continue, and we need to be saved. So this is coming from Isaiah, who knows that he needs to be saved.
He's recognizing his condition.
He's saying we're continuing in sin, and we need to be saved.
And I guess this is where Jesus Christ was so direct with the Pharisees, because they needed to have a direct reply and a description of who they were. White sepulchres. You look good on the outside, but inside you're dead. They needed to hear hard-hitting words to kind of jolt them out of their condition they don't even see they're in. And that can be the same for me, you know.
Samuel answered Saul and said, I am the seer. Go up before me to the high place, for you shall eat with me today, and tomorrow I will let you go and tell you all that is in your heart. But as for your donkeys that were lost 3 days ago, don't be anxious about them, for they have been found. And on whom is all the desire of Israel? Is it not on you and on all your father's house? And Saul answered and said, Am I not a Benjamite, of the smallest of the tribes of Israel, and my family the least of the families of the tribe of Benjamin? Why then do you speak like this to me? It's interesting though, because before Saul even gets the chance to say anything else, he simply asks Samuel, where's the seer? And Samuel responds and he says, I am the seer. This is verse 19. Go up before me to the high place, for you shall eat with me today, and tomorrow I will let you go, and will tell you all that is in your heart. So what's that mean? I mean, he's not only going to feed him, but he says, I will tell you all that is in your heart. Is that the donkeys? No, because verse 20 says, but as for the donkeys that were lost 3 days ago, they're okay.
Yeah.
And so clearly the donkeys are not what is in Saul's heart.
And here's an important fact too, which you can quite easily overlook. You shall eat with me today. How important is it, and it's a question, how important is it as Christians that we eat together?
It's a time of communion.
Yeah.
Breaking bread.
Yeah. And what's Revelation 3:20? Jesus is standing at your door, your house.
I guess that's the same verse that I paraphrased. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and dine with him, and he with me.
I love Revelation 3:20.
Having
the creator of the universe, get your head around that for a minute. Wanting to sit down beside you as an individual and sup with you.
Well, it's a surreal thought that even right now in this room, angels are listening.
Yeah.
And God is omnipresent. He's here too.
Yeah.
And he's listening and I hope smiling. No doubt.
I think they'd be singing.
And Saul's response is one of humility for now. And he says, am I not a Benjamite of the smallest of the tribes of Israel? And my family the least of the families of the tribe?
You see, that can open up another can of worms here. We're all about numbers. In human terms, we always look at our numbers and think a success is numbers. A success is a number of baptisms. A success is number of people coming to our church. Is it? Are those people Pharisees coming to the church? Or are they more than that? Have they really been touched by the Holy Spirit? It's not for me to judge. But numbers aren't important to God. But even Saul says this out loud, am I not of the Benjamite, of the smallest of the tribes of Israel? He just recognized his status in the scheme of things.
It's funny though, even though he's of the smallest, like his family is the least of the families of his tribe, and the tribe is the least of the tribes, yet his father was a mighty man of wealth.
Yeah.
So imagine the wealth of the other Benjamites.
Yeah, exactly. Why then do you speak like this to me? He's confused.
Jesus, you're good, faithful and true, and all things go through your hand. I know you will work it all for my good. At times I don't understand. Your ways, they are perfect. Your ways, they are high. When your waves are crashing and I'm asking why, you are still good in all that you do, and I give my praise to you. You light a fire through every trial, cleansing me deep within. Help me to see it's your love for me, purging my heart from sin. Your ways, they are perfect. Your ways, they are high. When your waves are crashing and I'm asking why, you are still good in all that you do, and I give my praise to you. Lord, I trust in you. Though there's pain, I will hope against hope. I cry out to you for your mercy. I lift up my voice, Lord, I trust in you. Though there's pain, I will hope against hope. I cry out to you For your mercy, I lift up my voice. Your ways, they are perfect. Your ways, they are high. Your waves are crashing and I'm asking why. You are still good in all that you do, and I give my praise to you. I know you will work it all for my good, and I choose to worship you.
A special thank you to Christ Our Life Music for letting me use their song Your Ways Are Perfect in this episode. Now Samuel took Saul and his servant and brought them into the hall and had them sit in the place of honor among those who were invited. There were about 30 persons. And Samuel said to the cook, "Bring the portion which I gave you, of which I said to you, set it apart." So the cook took up the thigh with its upper part and set it before Saul. And Samuel said, "Here it is, what was kept back. It was set apart for you. Eat, for until this time it has been kept for you, since I said I invited the people." So Saul ate with Samuel that day. They arose early, and it was about the dawning of the day that Samuel called to Saul on top of the house, saying, "Get up, that I may send you on your way." And Saul arose, and both of them went outside, he and Samuel. As they were going down to the outskirts of the city, Samuel said to Saul, "Tell the servant to go on ahead of us." And he went on, "But you stand here a while, that I may announce to you the word of God." And so it's here and now that Samuel actually reveals to Saul the things that are in his own heart, as in, if we jump back to verse 19, Samuel says that tomorrow I will let you go, but I'll also tell you all the things that are in your own heart. And so God is wanting to reveal to Saul his own heart.
I wasn't, this is going back probably 25 to 28 years ago, and I was a nominal Christian. I was going to church. I was one of those white sepulchres that looked good on the outside, and you know, we read in the Bible that God can give visions and dreams, and I'm not saying I had a vision, but I definitely had a dream. And the crazy thing was I wasn't a Bible reader either, which meant the Bible sat on my shelf or on my bed, and I didn't read it to know where Bible verses were. So when I was in a sleep, I woke up around 6 o'clock in the morning, and I remember the dream, and it's not very often that I remember a dream. And I remember sitting at the feet of Jesus. He was sitting above me. I don't know his face, but I know it was Jesus Christ. And we were in very close proximity of each other, and it's almost like I had a one-on-one. You know, a bit like the rich young ruler. Anyway, I had a question, and just this week gone we had a message preached from the rostrum about if you were in God's presence or Jesus' presence, what would be the question you would ask? And such a deep question, it can catch you by surprise, and not many people answered, if any. But I was thinking, wow, if we had a pre-warning, we might have had more response. But here in my dream, I asked the question of Jesus, how do I know that you love me? It wasn't to do with anybody else. It wasn't to do with my wife or anybody else. It was to do with me. Sometimes we would be more worldly than Christian. And when I started seeing changes and decisions being made by my wife, I recognised things are getting a little bit different here and uneasy. So when this dream came, I believe it came at the right time, because it was so vivid. And I remember a text which I had in my heart. And when I had it in my heart and woke up to this text, I thought, what's the chances of this being answered in the Bible? And I thought, it can't be.
You only had a reference, didn't you? You didn't have the words of the text, you just had the reference.
I just had the reference. So it was John 15 verse 9.
Yeah, I've got it here. It says, as the Father loved me, I also have loved you. Abide in my love.
And that just stopped me in my tracks. I couldn't believe that I had a direct response to my question. And I was just amazed.
That would.
I was, and I'll never forget it, ever. To know that God's word spoke directly to my need, to what I needed to know, and God knew I needed to hear that.
As with episode 1, there are a couple of reflection questions that I'd like to encourage you to think and pray upon now. Question 1. If a prophet from God like Samuel were about to tell you all that was in your own heart, what would that conversation look like? What would God address in your life? Question 2. What is your purpose as a Christian on this earth? I hope that at the end of your life you can safely say, I have not wasted it. Thank you for listening to episode 2 of 7, and this is the life of King Saul.